Yeah, warm
Yeah,
greetings, y'all. Yeah, this is reality with partiality and my co-host, uh, Ivan Williams. How are you, my colleague?
I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And once again,
Well,
welcome, welcome.
thank you. Today we're discussing the rich evidence that Belize has going into the International Court of Justice, where the case is now in oral arguments and a decision is due, according to what we're hearing, by December of this year. So in 2016, I wrote this book entitled The Belize Guatemala Territorial Dispute, an ironclad case in which Belize has nothing to lose by going to the International Court of Justice. So it was my support, lending support to the referendum process that would come. The book evolved in the wake of a transborder crisis with Guatemala, where on April 21st, 2016, our Belize Channel 7 News reported that a Guatemalan miner had been fatally wounded in the Chiquibul forest, and they alleged that it was a Belize Defense Force personnel while patrolling in the Chiquibul along the border with Guatemala that shot the miner. It was later proven not to be the case, but by that time, as you know, this allegation had caused a very serious threat of Guatemalan invasion. So, in reacting to the incident, Guatemalan President then Jimmy Morales recalled Guatemala's ambassador to Belize and deployed 3,000 troops to our Sarstoon border with Guatemala. You know, the border is at the mid channel. At the time, our Belize Prime Minister, Dean Barrow, then was away in New York signing a Paris Agreement. So he was out of the country, and so was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, my minister. As you know, I was working there at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. My desk responsibilities being climate change, international scholarships, not the local. The local at the time was handled mostly by the Ministry of Education. And then I was the focal point for IAEA, Atomic Energy, headquartered in Austria. But all Foreign Service officers must be schooled in the Belize Guatemala matter, for that is our greatest national security threat. So I was up to speed. But now the challenge was to go more in depth, given that our heads were out of the country, the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister. So when President Morales of Guatemala placed these 3,000 troops on our border, our Prime Minister was signing the Paris Agreement in New York. The incident and the posturing of Guatemala triggered queries as well as protests from Belizeans both at home and abroad, and in particular the United States. Whilst there was this vacuum for good information, so the Belize media was resorting to getting its news from sources like Prince Libre, the media house in Guatemala. And that's where I took the liberty in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, together with a colleague of mine, Max. He assisted kindly. He's very versed in Spanish. So together we responded to the social media and our citizenry, at home and abroad. So the book is basically a compilation of the responses I was forced to research, catching this wave, in the wake of the crisis, the evidence, the rich evidence that Belize has, now that the case is at the ICJ, going through its oral arguments, hinge on one, the consolidation of our territory. Belize, formerly British Honduras, consolidated the territory, the entire 8,867 square miles, in 3 phases. The 1783 logging treaty with Spain to cut logwood in the area bounded north by the Rio Hondo down to the Belize River. Then the 1786 annex to the same treaty, expanding the cutting to include from the Belize River to the Sibun River. And the last phase, third, was when in 1798, Spain attacked the territory through its captains in general in Mexico. That's where it had its administration that dealt with Belize, then British Honduras. But Spain was soundly defeated either by force of arms, if it was a battle, or by acquiescence, given Spain after 1798 never returned to the territory. Therefore, British Honduras completed the consolidation of our territory around 1798, when the area was expanded to include west of Garbat Falls, that border, and south by the Sarstoon River at the mid-channel. Therefore, the next time we celebrate the 10th of September, my colleague Ivan, let us not wrangle over whether we had either a battle or skirmish, that political spot that we keep having. Whether that's whatever the case was at St. George's Caye. Because the point is that around 1798, that's when Belize, formerly British Honduras, consolidated the territory with the borders recorded in the 1859 treaty and the borders as we know them today. Am I wrong?
Certainly, you're certainly correct. Right on point, my brother.
Consolidation is the point. Now, in addition to consolidation, we have the 1859 Boundary Treaty, which spells out, well, it starts in the preamble to inform that it is a boundary treaty. The 1859 treaty once a treaty is established according to international law and ICJ precedent, it cannot be changed. That is one. So the 1859 treaty contains a vague promise to build a cart road in that infamous Article 7. But it is vague if you read it for yourself. However, any thought of consideration to compensate Guatemala for that so-called cart road that may or may not have been built, should they claim it wasn't built, that has been ruled out by the signing of the 2008 special agreement. Because the agreement says the ICJ judges must go strictly by the international law and cannot use their conscience. This is because, you see, Guatemala failed to enter into the special agreement the language ex aque et bono, the Latin term that means from equity and justice that the judges could have ruled from. So, and conscience rather, from equity and conscience. They can't use their conscience to help determine their decision, your opinion. So, in 1945, after the ending of World War II, which ended in 1944, the United Nations was established. And so was the ICJ, same year, same year. Therefore, it was not by happenstance, Ivan, that Guatemala, in realizing that the end of dictatorship era, and Guatemala was a dictatorship, was short-lived. Guatemala was caught flat-footed. And so that's when it hurriedly reacted to the forming of the UN by fabricating a new constitution in which Guatemala declared the 1859 treaty to be null and void, and that British Honduras belonged to Guatemala, claiming the treaty was breached when British Honduras failed to build the infamous Article 7 Cart Road. Except one party cannot unilaterally nullify a treaty. So the 1859 treaty stands. The 1859 treaty, which clearly describes in its preamble that it is a border treaty. Your thoughts?
Yes, my brother, and I just wanted to add a little backdrop there that from 2008 to 2020, it was the Honorable Dean Barrow's administration, the UDP administration.
Yes.
And to bring home the fact that the efforts made during that time was concentrated not on military front, but on heavy diplomacy.
Yes.
And on the issue of trying to get this matter to the ICJ so that international law can determine this territorial dispute between Belize and Guatemala.
Yes.
And so we are very thankful for the agreement signed in respect where both countries agreed to put this dispute before the ICJ. And
Yes.
so that is one of the significant achievements during that time.
Indeed.
The issue before the court, in my view, and the question to be answered, in my view, is the question of whether Belize has a lawful sovereignty, and whether Guatemala has any legal claim to Belize.
Yes.
And these claims or the arguments are rooted in, as you mentioned, very rooted in history and in treaty law.
Yes.
And has to do with colonial law and an
Yes.
international recognition and state practices.
Yes.
So that is some of the grounding rules in which the court will look at the matter. And you already mentioned the 1859 Anglo-Guatemalan Treaty with Great Britain, and the question will be whether it was a boundary treaty and whether it is valid based on that cart road that was promised.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
And so, but there are many things other than that. I believe that the actions of Guatemala, right, itself, the court will use that. But I believe that one of the greatest principle that will be used in determining this territorial dispute has to do with the international principle, Latin word uti possidendi juris rule. And that principle was used And there's precedent of it being used in many countries over border. So to address the issue of the 1859 treaty, the the court will also look at the principle that because Belize became independent in 1981, using that rule, it inherited those borders. You can't go withdraw. The principle is against withdrawing your border to
Yes, yes,
avoid
yes, yes.
disputes and so on, where countries after becoming independent claim more than what they used to administer. So I
Yes,
think the court is going to look at what was Belize, or what was the administration under the colonial system, and that
yes.
will be an inheritance to Belize in terms of determining its border. Okay,
Yeah.
so Guatemala relying primarily on the 1859 treaty will not be sufficient. That is where they have a very slim chance,
Or the filing of it. The filing of it.
right, of. But you know the challenges that we've been having to get to the very ICJ, where in the referendum the government had to go across the country to present to the Belizean populace the the question of whether we should go yes or no. I remember attending many of the campaigns,
Yes.
and you
The,
know
the,
there were a lot of fears at that time. There were a lot of
of
people
course, of
saying
course.
we don't
Well,
need
you
this.
see, because there was this vacuum for good information. So there needed to be an aggressive education campaign to cover 200 years worth of material.
Yes.
You know, history can be boring. You know,
Yeah.
and and
And
and so to unpack that in one night where you're going from district to district, having a meeting is asking too much. You if you are not a very engaging speaker,
yeah.
someone can get up there and destroy you in 30 seconds. You know, with all your good information and factual information. At any rate, do you know why Guatemala wants to go to ICJ? You know
Guatemala.
that question was asked and answered
Yeah. Well,
in the
I
signing.
have
In the, uh-huh.
Guatemala wants to say that a number of things. Guatemala wants to say that Britain never did
Let me
take
let me let
effect.
me let me let me let me let me add this to you. In the signing of the special agreement, Jules Vasquez of Channel 7 and Adele Ramos were there in Washington at the OAS headquarters, and they interviewed Guatemalan's ambassador Gert Rosenthal. He said, I went to school. I was taught in Belize. Taught Belize is Guatemala. I was taught Belize is Guatemala. So Jules asked him, he said, but now, Rosenthal, one of the most senior respected diplomats in Guatemala, Jules writes. So Jules asked him, why are you signing this 2008 special agreement? Will it pass your Congress? Gert Rosenthal said, I think so. I think Belize is not an issue. Everybody understands after 26 years of independence, Belize is a sovereign state. This is the Guatemalan ambassador. So Adele Ramos asked, why not just drop the claim then? Jews, well, Rosenthal said, well, if we could, we probably would. The problem is the Constitution. Adele said, but the Constitution can be changed. Gert Rosenthal, it is very difficult to change the Constitution. In other words, Guatemala knows it doesn't have a leg to stand on, but it wants the ICJ to bell the cat. In addition to the 1859 treaty, my colleague, Guatemala went on to sign the 1931 exchange of diplomatic notes, which is a treaty. According to the experts, that 1931 exchange of notes on its own could win the case for Belize, because it was to concretize the existing stone piles demarcating the borders at Garbot Falls and Gracias a Dios. Stone piles that were there at the time, turning them into what exists today. So the 1931 treaty/agreement also serves as a confirmation treaty. If the 1859 treaty was no longer valid, why would Guatemala go on to sign the 1931? You're not answering. So, yeah, well, anyway.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you with what you're saying, because Guatemala, as you said, wants to get off the hook, so to speak, because
yes,
the Constitution, remember, they will be in trouble. Any leader, anybody in Guatemala try to do otherwise would be in some serious problems. All right? And this has primarily be caused by the oligarchs in Guatemala, who have been pushing for this sort of thing.
Yes.
And want to enjoy the benefits of Belize waters.
Yes.
Hunting Caye, particularly, and Zapadilla rule. But on the strict principles of international rules and laws, they don't stand a ghostiest chance of winning.
Exactly.
But as you said, there were those who, for various reasons, right, was fighting against the yes vote. But thank God we were able to get the required number. It was not that high, but low.
In both countries. In both countries.
Yes. In both countries, yeah, in both countries.
So
and so now it is a matter of the judges sitting down and analyzing the cases. I'm saying, I started out by saying that Belize's argument is that the 1859 treaty is a boundary treaty.
Well, okay, fine.
And Guatemala is saying, well, the British did not fulfill, so the treaty may be illegal.
Well, right? You see, once a treaty, a border treaty, once borders have been established, they cannot be changed.
Right. Well, that goes on.
So one country cannot unilaterally nullify a treaty.
Well, even if their argument, you can't nullify a treaty by that.
Right.
That's perhaps an issue that they have to take up with Britain, not Belize.
Well, anyway,
you understand me? In any event,
yes, but
that is one of the points that will be argued.
Fine, but fast forwarded. Aside from
the court will also look at, and Belize is arguing that Belize have recognized, as you were pointing out, Guatemala, have recognized Belize, as you point out, on several occasions. The existence and also the territory.
Yes,
right. So how can you come now if you have been taking acts and signing agreements and say you recognize them all of a sudden, right? So that is another thing that Guatemala will have to try to find how to defeat.
Fine, but
that. Right.
Let us come a little bit more. Let us come a little then go back a little in history also.
Okay, go ahead.
After the United Nations was formed, after World War II.
Yes.
On December 14, 1960, the UN resolved and signed into resolution the granting of independence to colonial countries. So in its paragraph 6, it says that any attempt aimed at partial or total disruption of national unity or territorial integrity of a country is incompatible with the purposes and principles of the Charter of the UN. So it was based on this 1960 Declaration of the UN that every year from 1975, 76 up to 80, Belize under Premier Price requested the UN support of its independence. And so the UN passed resolutions every year from 75 to 80. And on November 11, 1980, they passed the strongest one, which had unanimous support except for Guatemala. And it says, give Belize her independence within a year with its sovereignty intact, except go on to resolve the dispute. So it was that is the basis and the motivation that Belize had to lobby the United Nations for its independence, that 1960 resolution. Now, we've discussed the 1859 treaty. We've discussed the 1931 treaty, which is diplomatic notes in the form of. And now we have your thoughts. Let me pause because I don't want to go.
My thought is that you're right, but I wanted to introduce another argument that is going to come up, and that is acquiescence. Belize will argue acquiescence, that how can you not recognize when you establish diplomatic relations? There was diplomatic relations. A country which is claiming another one don't do that. Well, and several other things in terms of, as you mentioned, at the United Nations, all these other countries are recognizing, and so there are many things that Guatemala have done.
Well. Remember who acquiesced? Spain in 1798. Then Guatemala went down. Spain, they never returned after the battle.
No, but that is one of the arguments. They are arguing that we inherited because Spain. We are a child of Spain.
Has to base on the treaty, 1859, and then in 1931.
Yeah.
Guatemala, the treaty was between Guatemala and the British.
Right, but I'm saying that the ICJ always use the principle of acquiescence, because you have to check to see your behavior, and if you have over time, in a sense, done certain things to show that you acquiesce, that is going to be a thing against them.
What happens
in addition to the 1859 treaty?
What happens? You see, what happens? Guatemala never had effective control over Belize, British Anguillas.
Well, that's another matter.
One moment. They never had administration.
Yes.
When the Captaincy General came to attack in 1798, it was through Mexico. So you don't call it squatters, right? But Guatemala never had administration over Belize. Now they are trying to establish that at the South Stone, effective control. They never had administration. So that is a point of law. You know that.
Yes, I understand that, because that's another principle. That's another principle on which the ICJ will rule. Who had effective control and who had appropriation.
Yes.
So apart from the treaty, apart from the principle of uti possidendi, and apart from acquiescence, they are also going to look at effective control.
Yes.
Who administer control, whether there were free and fair elections, all of these things. Administration.
If any country had a rightful claim, it would have been Mexico. That's where the Captaincy General came from, not Guatemala.
Right.
That is where Spain's Captaincy General came from, not Guatemala. But that's a mute point now, because we have borders with Mexico as well. But Mexico and Belize have always had excellent relations. The question was put. Go ahead. Go ahead.
they were trying, because you remember when Guatemala was trying to get some people, influence some people out of Toledo, out of Punta Gorda,
Uh-huh.
right, to influence the Mayans and try to get
Yes.
to try to get some kind of control over
Yes.
Belize. They tried, but that was short lived. There were people in Punta Gorda, I don't want to call names,
Uh-huh.
who is alleged were receiving funds to carry out that mission.
Yes. Actually,
But that failed, uh,
yes, it
and
failed.
so on. So
It,
they will not have a chance in terms of that principle, international principle used by the ICJ in terms of effective control or effective occupation and administration of the country. So
yes.
that, yes,
There's more than, like you said, it's a continuous strategy of Guatemalans to do mischief in the South in attempts to influence this matter. And so in the 60s, recall that there was like an invasion when the
right,
fellow planted the flag there in our village, the PG. It was short-lived because the British took care of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
so
the
so so some of the we can clearly demonstrate effective control and occupation because, like I said, some of the elements would be a legal system, which we have,
uh-huh,
elections,
uh-huh.
policing, and administration and development. Those are some of the factors which we will be able to demonstrate that we had and continuous control over the territory
Yes,
and
yes,
occupation. So I don't
yes.
think so that
Uh-huh. Go ahead.
those are some of the things that make the case, Belize case, very strong.
Well,
Right?
it was both Belize and Guatemala sought the opinion of experts. And the experts all said, both Guatemala's and Belize's, that Belize's case is ironclad on the basis of consolidation. But even before that, the two treaties, 1859 and 1931. In addition, administration. Guatemala has never had administration over Belize. In addition, the 2008 special agreement rules out, it sets the parameters for the case. It says, one, you have to make only one application. So claim everything where you want to claim in this one. For the territory, insular keys, and the maritime. You can't come back and say, I may only claim for half. And now I'll come back for the next half. And then the decision will be final. That is two. And then the 2008 special agreement also says that it's once and for all. And the thing that either for you or not for you, that was zero-sum game. So, yeah, zero-sum game. And it's not our, everybody have to vote unanimous no. It's a majority vote of the 15 judges. So I wanted to inform the public, give them an idea of how this thing went. The ICJ president will call the judges together, and he will start with the judge that was appointed last to give the opinion. And so he will go around, and the president will be the last one to give the opinion of how, up or down, whatever. And then he will send those to his secretariat to put together. And it will be based on the majority vote. That is how the matter will go. When the result come back, it will come not only with whose territory it is, but instruction to demarcate the maritime, which includes Honduras, who the country forming a part of the case only limited to the maritime, which is tripartite. According to former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Courtney Eamon, he says the case is ironclad in a little thing that Wesley College, in effect. He said, except one thing that the border, tripartite border with Mexico and Guatemala, Belize, at Aguas Tubias. He said maybe out by quarter mile. The border may be out by quarter mile. You know. So what is a quarter mile? So the ruling will come back to clean, if that is there, to clean that. But other than that, Belizeans can be rest assured that there will not be any changing a border. Because once a border has been established, it cannot be changed.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, I want to
go ahead
before you continue, and I want to also, and I think you touched on it, but I just want to add a few points to it.
Yes, go ahead.
International recognition is another important principle that the ICJ looks at. International recognition, and you mentioned some of it, meaning that overwhelming recognition by other states. Okay.
Of course. Sovereignty, man.
A member of the UN, Belize is admittance into the
Guatemala
United
itself
Nations.
recognized our sovereignty in the 90s. I think you and I discussed it when the Serrano president established diplomatic ties.
Yes.
And we allowed them use of 9 of 12 miles in the maritime. So Guatemala has recognized Belize's sovereignty. We have diplomatic relations with Guatemala, so those points are mute now.
Yeah, but I'm just pointing out that these are the things that the judges are going to look at because they are using those principles, and it will also look at the support coming out, even the support coming out of CARICOM and the Commonwealth of Nations.
Yeah,
it will look at, because if you are internationally recognized, that is an important principle that can be used to add to the case in support of Belize.
Well, you see,
so Belize.
You are right on everything.
Yeah.
You see, the case is not really about. Bill is saying is Belize considered as spoil of war after the defeat of Spain in 1798. Our guest from yesterday. Bill, I will come back to you, Bill. But thanks for getting into the chatter feed. You see, it's both Belize and Guatemala know that they're going to the ICJ to bail the cat. They both know that. And Gert Rosenthal spelled it out to Adele and Jules. He said, we know we now win. So why are we going? Well, because this thing in our constitution, we can't just file it like that. It treason us. But same in Belize. The late Philip Golson said, not a blade of grass. That is not you can't negotiate from that. So both positions are buttressed, entrenched, right? Both countries. So what is it about? Well, Belize has trade agreements with Guatemala. Can we change Guatemala from being our neighbor? While I was there, we had more than 14 trade agreements with Guatemala. So Belize has a different culture from Guatemala. Wow. Guatemala, Nembole. Belize laid back a little. And so we take this nonchalant approach, but Guatemala, they're aggressive. They came from a dictatorship background. All we have known is democracy. All Belizeans have known is democracy. So I want to say to our people out there that we must not relax on this issue and take it lightly, because we don't have a security agreement in the event that Guatemala threatens to invade or actually invade. A written signed security agreement, defense guarantee, since the British left. So the government is not revealing, but what does it have? Prince Harry passing through on a ship, waving and saying, hello, hello, hello. Will not cut it. We need something in writing. Huh?
Yes, yes.
I'm hello, my colleague, hello.
Yes, I'm listening to you.
Yeah. So but when the result come out, Bill, there will be hiccup from Guatemalan side. And in the
Yes,
meantime,
huh? Yes, there will be hiccups. There will be hiccups, but we are comforted by the fact that the court has the jurisdiction to settle. They are agreeing to settle finally.
Yes.
Finally. So if they do that, they will be against the ruling of the court. If they try to do anything thereafter, because that is one of the things that have been clearly defined, that the court ruling will be accepted. It's a definitive settlement.
And the court, ICJ court, works together with the United Nations. And the United Nations, it has the tool to enforce the judgment, which will only kick in. We can't call upon the United Nations now. It makes no sense. And then we come. But once the judgment is made, the United Nations have a peacekeeping force. So Guatemala hiccup, you have made a point, and this is the other one. The point you made is the international community will stand up and take notice. And Guatemala wanting to change its reputation from dictatorship to being a nice, decent, upstanding country will not want to upset the diplomatic community. Besides, Belize and Guatemala are trade partners, aside from neighbors. If they poison Guatemala water, Belize water poison. If there's a disease on their side, there'll be disease on our side. In other words, border on no disease, you don't know those things. So we have to have Interpol exchange of information about gangs, about cartel, etc., etc. We have to join hands to protect our borders. Thank goodness for the OAS and the peacekeeping measures at the border to repatriate these people, these squatters, back into their place. They find the funds, to rebuild for them back in Guatemala and take them out of the adjacency zone, or wherein they were found to be in Belize. So those tools are there, and they will be there as long as we need them. The OS have finding the funds to keep peace alive. So the people of Belize, together with the government, just have to manage things at the Sastoon. What was Bill saying? Wait, Bill, you want to answer, Bill? He's asking, is Belize considered a spoil of war after the defeat of Spain in 1798? Bill again. So thanks, Bill. You are saying that tongue in cheek. You are making jokes. So
that's an important point. The Battle of St. George's Caye, as you already mentioned. Whether you want to call it whatever you want to call it, the fact is that occupation continued, and Spain can't claim that they had any occupation or control. So at least that is another element, that can help and
I
assure
want to
Belizean.
move on and give you your props because you boldly came on air and you said you putting your heart. You once tried the political thing. Let me ask you this: why do we wrangle September 10th? Do you agree with the wrangling?
No, I don't.
Over
There
whether
are
it's a
certain.
battle or a skirmish?
No, no, no. There are a number of things that I don't agree to because we have to get rid of politics in certain things. Um,
Aha.
it is one of those things that divide us. And while we are entitled to our
Aha.
own political opinion and political views and belonging, clearly
Thank you.
we cannot put politics. And so anybody who try to use those important events,
Yes.
which should bring people together and create that sense of patriotism and nationalism, we
Yes.
are wrong. We can't politicize, and we don't care because we, we 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 have to recognize that we are one, and the
Yes.
importance of that event to our development and our case right now at the ICJ. So I don't believe that. I am one of those who don't think we should use those events for political
I
mileage.
agree with you. We should be unifying our people, man. We should be unifying our people. I want to publicly thank participants in the show. Um, you know, what's her name? Javier Tun and Jack Charles. They yeah, they tuned in and they're listening to us. They're not making comments, but they're listening. And I want to encourage other viewers to let us know that you are there. So, my colleague,
Yes.
um, with your
Well,
wealth of knowledge,
I
go
wanted
ahead,
to touch on the point that
please, please, please.
Belize's strongest argument, not the only argument, but the strongest argument, is that of the uti possidendi juris rule,
Uh huh.
which means that borders after independence cannot be altered,
Right,
and the administration documents and other historical records that shows that Belize had control,
right,
that is going to be the border.
right,
And because it has been used in several other border dispute cases, right? We have
right.
Salvador and Honduras. The ICJ used that same principle to define the borders between those two countries. They used it in Burkina Faso and Mali in 1986 because there was a tendency by countries after independence to redefine and withdraw their border, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
uh, we will have a clear border, or borders defined based on those, based on that principle, right? But that is
Yeah,
not the only one, like we mentioned.
yeah,
And we mentioned the aspect of international recognition, right?
yeah,
And all the others that we mentioned before, the establishment of diplomatic relations,
yeah,
the international recognition,
yeah.
the all of these things add to the case to make Belize's case a very, very
But
strong one.
Belizeans generally, I get the impression that they generally know that we are sitting pretty, And a matter of fact, that's why many were reluctant to go to the ICJ because they said, but we don't there, we don't want this, we don't feel threatened. Um, so no, really, didn't you get that impression?
I got that impression. That was one of the major arguments put forward. We don't need to do nothing, but then then the Guatemala.
Well, well,
Guatemala is threatened us. We know.
well, well, but also business was undone. incomplete, because in the 1980 resolution, the UN had instructed, gave Belize independence with its sovereignty and territory intact. But it also stipulated to resolve the dispute, which we attempted to at that point with the heads of agreement, but that failed. And we continued attempts like with Serrano coming in the 90s and that maritime areas thing, right? Then
Yes.
he ended up at the 2008 thing, special
Yes.
agreement, which
Special
was
agreement.
signed, which is a treaty, by the way.
Yes.
So it is on that basis that we are at the ICJ. So we have come all this way with Belize, small in size, but winning Guatemala every time to the punch, beating Guatemala every time, even with the language at this adjacency zone. The adjacency line is exactly the border line. So I am with Belizeans sitting pretty, right? But the reason we are taking the matter to the ICJ and that we are there is because we want it resolved. We want the court to resolve it. We have tried every other means. And when the court resolves it, this is no longer the barbaric days. It will be resolved once and for all. And risk will go down on the border with Guatemala, risk of doing business. We will be able to also do business in our maritime space, which will be demarcated. The ruling will come with that. So we could drill oil on land and in sea. Investors would come in and we could do with what we ought to be doing with our lands. So we will have prosperity in the length and breadth of Belize. All we will need to do is to put a lid on corruption to ensure that the proceeds from oil, i.e., go into education, such as. That is my take. That is my view. But for now, we need, I think you are the one that inferred it. We need information. We need to be kept abreast,
Yes.
at home and abroad. We need the press to get with it. We need to know that we will get blow by blow accounting as the case proceeds through the ICJ. Am I asking too much?
No. I was hoping that there would have been some move on that part by the governments and by the press. By now, I mean, we call on them to do that,
Please,
and
man.
I haven't seen anything, and it is important because
They're busy the yap about all kind of thing, and anyhow, your part in shot.
well, like I said, Belize have a very, very, very strong case for several reasons which we have discussed. And so I personally have no fear. I supported the view to go to the ICJ.
Yes.
I know that from my understanding is that Guatemala also wants to resolve this issue. And like you
Yes.
said, they are looking for a scapegoat or looking for someone else to bell the cat. So I am only worried about after that what is going to happen, particularly with the oligarchs in Guatemala who might
Yes.
want to do something otherwise. And so I want to you know it's a court, right? And you said ironclad case, but
Ironclad case.
yeah, but that's the reason why and it's important that we see what is going on punch to punch, because
Punch to punch.
a
Punch
case is
to
a
punch.
case. A case is a case.
Yes, a case.
And judge's decision must be based on those legal principles which we mentioned about. And so it's
Yes.
important. I don't want to say otherwise, but I don't see, based on those factors, why
Yes.
we shouldn't win that case. But it's
Thank you.
important. But it's
Thank you.
important for us to to
we
see
will
what is
win,
going on. To see what is going on.
and with
All
our
right?
territory intact.
Yes.
Not a blade of grass
Not a
for
morass.
Guatemala, because it is a zero-sum game. Either that for you or they're not for you. And it's all ours, the territorial land, the maritime, as well as the
The
keys.
territory. Yeah.
Yeah, insular. So it's all ours. So all we are asking, I endorse what my colleague is saying, is for the media and our Belize government to be vigilant and informative, to keep us abreast. And I want to finally thank you, our viewers, for staying with us as we continue this documentary of our 45 years of independence. We are now at the Barrow era, the 15 years. In a roundabout way, that's where and the first Dean Barrow repeat prime ministers, first repeat prime minister. We're not talking premier. We only had one. Prime minister that since independence. And both him and Prime Minister Musa before him had foreign affairs experience before they became prime minister. So those two attorneys help us through these very, tumultuous waters.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah,
It
in
is
this
only
40 years.
it is
Yes.
it is only fair and right that we recognize each and everyone who has contributed, because it has been a journey, it has been a process,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It has been a process before independence
Exactly.
and even after independence. So yes, but we have to highlight the importance of those prime minister in particular during their administration, the events that they took, and Honorable Dean Barrow will be remembered for taking it, winning that yes vote to the ICJ,
Yes.
and the
And
results of the ICJ.
you and I will discuss off air how we kept this documentary, because we are now at the present. Prime Minister Briceño,
Yes, yes,
which is
yes,
back with his second term.
yes.
So September we will make 45 years. And we want to be fair to everyone, including the government,
Not,
because
not, not,
we are basically giving a report card.
not only that too, Percy, but at some point in time we need to discuss those major issues that are plaguing the Belizean
Yes,
society, why we cannot progress
yes.
in a more rapid and advanced stage. There's some there's some serious issues happening in our country that is
Well, well,
preventing us.
who better than to invite to the forum the leader of the opposition? What you think about that?
I have no objections to that. I mean, we welcome,
Okay.
because I like I said, there are some serious things wrong in terms of advancing the wellness of the country, and more
Yes.
importantly, the well-being of the people in Belize. Especially in terms of governance issues,
Well, I will go.
accountability issues, and corruption issues, and all of these. And so we'll have to touch on some of those things, which I see are affecting our progress as we go about, and we have
Thank
to
you.
call a spade, not taking any side here.
And with that, we end our segment for today. Thanks for watching. This is Reality with Partiality, together with my co-host, Ivan Williams. Are you?
You, thank you all. Thanks very much.